What can we say about Star Trek Strange New Worlds? Well, it's diverse. It's inclusive. It's stunning. It's definitely brave.
Didn't I tell you to stop being brave?
And it's got more mammary glands than the best little whorehouse in Texas. This show came sprinting out of the gate with the message firmly in tow. And quality writing that deserves its rightful place in the discount aisle at Walmart, where unwanted and overpriced items go to live out the remainder of their life in shame. So let's pop the hood on Kurtzman's Drek and see what's busted. We start this episode with the Federation initiating first contact with an alien planet, but something goes awry and they have to call in Captain Pike to go investigate. Pike hasn't made up his mind whether he wants to captain the Enterprise or not, because in this universe he somehow got to see his future and the terrible accident that will leave him trapped in his high-tech hover-round and his own mind for the rest of his life. My first issue with this series is the dialogue is written mostly as if the show was taking place in our time. It just doesn't fit within the Star Trek universe. It's as if they're dumbing it down so modern audiences can digest it better. So either they're too dumb to write intelligent dialogue, or they think we're too dumb to understand it.
Is it too much to ask for both?
Now, the half-naked girl lying in his bed comes down for breakfast. Now, I'll give a pass on this one because, well, the original series, skinned for days. But this was only shown because we have to have Pike equal or better with the ladies than Kirk.
Of course, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
His communicator starts chirping, and she says,
"Phone's ringing again."
Why is she referring to it as a phone? This kind of vernacular should be far removed from their lexicon by this time. That word should be as foreign to them as credit card or charging cable. Which leads me to my next complaint. Mother duckin' windmills. You have got to be kidding. This is a society so advanced that they figured out how to power a starship to travel to the ends of the galaxy and back. And you want me to believe that they're still using windmills that barely produce enough electricity to power my TV remote. Pure environmental propaganda. Now comes the intro. This sounds as much like a Star Trek theme as Beethoven's Fifth. Not that this is better than Beethoven, but it just doesn't belong. And I believe they know it, and that's why they put this at the end. Hey, you remember this? Remember? Do you remember? Huh? Do you remember? Spock, who is apparently going through his rock and roll phase with that messy hair look, keeps talking back and forth with his girlfriend like they're computer database programs.
Query.
Querying.
Yes, querying.
Query. That should have been a query.
Spock was betrothed when he was a child to this woman. They touched minds and thoughts and were bonded together until the day Ponfar would come upon him, and he would be drawn back to Vulcan and be married to his betrothed, in which he already considered his wife. He had hoped that Ponfar would, not affect him since he was half human. Now he just needs to do the Vulcan dance with no pants or die. Here they had to have her propose marriage to him because it's progressive.
Spock. Will you marry me?
I was beginning to think you would never ask.
This entire scene was irrelevant and out of place, but it gets better. Spock's trying to have sex before Ponfar. Oh no, Spock, no! Put that down! Now, when was the last time you saw Spock even remotely interested in any kind of physical encounter? Once. With Nurse Chapel, when he was going through, Ponfar.
Enterprise, this is Shuttle Stamets, incoming to transport coordinates.
Stamets cleared to transport.
Energize.
Why did he beam off the shuttle when the shuttle was literally just seconds away from the docking bay? Did the shuttle just beam him to the Enterprise? When he said energize, he wasn't in communication with the ship. He was talking to the pilot. What just happened here? Do shuttles have transporters now?
A few officers will have to bill it after the mission. That includes the chief engineer and Lieutenant Kirk, whom I know you're requesting.
Captain Pike. Lieutenant La'an Noonien Singh, Chief of Security.
Communications. Ah, yes, the prodigy. Cadet Uhura, on communications rotation. Signature of a functioning warp drive. Appeared on Kylie 279. The USS Archer went to say hello.
I am remotely accessing the ship's manifest. Archer carried only Una and 2 astrophysicists.
The Archer is a very large starship, with all the departments and stations as the Enterprise. Medical, engineering, transporter, security, helm, science, communications, just to name a few. And this ship was crewed by only 3 people. I believe this is what we call contrivance. You see, they had to have a small crew on board that could get captured so Pike would come rescue them. If the ship was full of crew, say 100 and some change, the entire plot couldn't happen. The away team would have called for a beam out or would have negotiated for release, seeing how they had a giant ship in orbit that could annihilate them. There are several scenarios where all this could have been avoided if they had more crew members. And why in the world would they beam down all 3 crew and leave the ship abandoned? I don't recall Starfleet having remote transport capabilities, at least not at this time. And taking a shuttle that could get captured or damaged would still leave them in the same boat. But hey, we're just getting started.
This warp signature's also got a pretty weird signal variance.
Recommend deflector shields to full. No hails from the surface or subspace chatter. No interplanetary traffic. Not one orbital dock.
What's your point?
These people aren't showing any signs of local space colonization.
Puts them a century behind constructing warp drives.
Yet they have a warp signature.
A nascent one.
The anomaly is a red flag.
Captain, there is not sufficient...
Activate deflector shields.
I get it. Now I know why they brought Lady Khan on this show. So they had a valid excuse to have a woman who is smarter than all the men.
Reading multiple launches from the surface.
Damage assessment.
Minimal, but if we hadn't had our shields up.
Good call, number 1.
You have proved your superior intellect.
Plasma torpedoes? That's 21st century tech.
Plasma torpedoes? A torpedo is a naval weapon. Anything fired from surface to space is not a torpedo. Missile or rocket, if you please.
I've analyzed the signal variants, Lieutenant Ortega's isolated. These people have not built a warp drive. They've built a warp bomb.
Warp bomb? That's just 10 more minutes of video if I dug into that mess. Let's just say warp is a bubble that allows the ship to move faster than light. The warp part has nothing to do with the power creation part. It's the effect. What they meant to say is matter-antimatter bomb.
We're gonna mess with your genome.
You first.
Nurse Karen looks crazier than a bag full of cats. She's got a bad case of the crazy eyes.
Nurse Chapel is on civilian exchange from the Stanford Morehouse Epigenetic Project.
Sounds like you're just the person for the job.
The so-called nurse is from a genetics project at Stanford. That seems more a doctor-scientist level position.
We're gonna mess with your genome.
We'll need to make a few alterations if you want to blend in.
Now, how did she know what they were planning? Nobody said anything about the plan, but she knew exactly what was going on and what to do.
Nurse Chapel is part of Starfleet's initiative to better observe alien cultures without contamination.
Lucky she was on board, I guess.
Body is going to undergo compressed, jury-rigged metamorphosis. It's painful.
Damn the ramparts, Doctor.
Pike called her a doctor. But she's a nurse, right? I'm so confused.
Vulcans are more complex, and your half-human genome might not last as long the first time.
So Spock's may not last as long since he's half human. I wonder if this is going to come back and bite him in the ears. I said ears.
No sedatives, just a gene therapy.
Lady Khan doesn't want to take the sedative, even though it's going to cause her a lot of pain.
Maybe I wasn't clear about the terrible pain part.
Maybe I wasn't clear when I said no.
Is she a recovering addict? Who knows? They literally never bring it up again. They just need to establish she's a strong woman, but frankly, she looks like she's about to launch a photon torpedo, if you know what I mean. Now, when Kirk and Spock take the therapy, nothing happens, even as long as a minute or two. But when Lady Khan takes the therapy, it immediately starts working. Why? Well, frankly, because they suck.
Local clothing patterns have been downloaded into the buffer, as well as universal translators and tricorders.
Enterprise has magic transporters now. They can load up weapons, clothes, and tricorders to beam down with the away team.
Captain, where are my pants?
And it even changes their clothes for them. Does it give them a shave and an effing haircut?
Oh my God!
This is some fantastical tech they didn't have in the future. Did they abandon this magical technology? Why would they write this?
Why is it always an alley?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because that's where everybody goes that don't want to be seen. You dope.
I love you. His neck.
What?
His neck. His neck.
It is fortunate their musculature is responsive.
It's fortunate that you can finally take a hint.
God, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Carnation instant bitch?
They are both under low-level sedation. Let's see how this works on them.
You want to keep these guys unconscious so they don't see anything, and you experiment with low-level sedation just to see how it works? Not the way I would have gone.
I need a DNA sample. If I don't synthesize a booster with actual Kylie DNA, he may not pass a retinal scan.
What in the crap does a retinal scan have to do with your DNA? Retinal scans go by the unique patterns on a person's retinal blood vessels. This whole scenario doesn't make sense. Look, in a security ID situation, each person would have a scan of their retina and recorded into a database attached to their name and photo of said person. Did they manage to hack into the planet's security and implant this information? Don't know. They never said. They're insinuating just the altered DNA will get them past the scan. We've already established what a retinal scan does. If they needed DNA samples, they would need tissue. Do the aliens have magic scanners too?
I don't know.
How do they know they use retinal scan security for that matter? Did they scan all the tech they have on the planet? Why didn't they scan for weapons tech when they first got there if their scanners are so awesome? And do they know if they're still using toilet paper or the 3 seashells?
Where am I?
Looks like both the aliens woke up at the same time because the low-level sedation idea was dumb.
You're fired. Kyle, can you pinpoint a location and beam down and apply an ice health?
Are you kidding? No, transporters don't do that.
Sir, I don't believe you understand the power of the Transporter Supreme Model SUX. You can literally beam a booger out of someone's nose and transport it into someone else's anus. Why, you can beam every hair follicle from Mr. Spock's head and transport it into Lady Khan's crotch, mid-transport. My God, you can even beam down a plate of food and have it pre-chewed midstream and materialize in someone's stomach. It's magic.
Chief, it's Ortegas. Find a way to make them do that.
We're headed to the bridge. The bridge is where our back tack is.
Back tack? I guess we're just making up words now.
Like the game tag ball on your planet. The back tack makes all the decisions.
You know tag ball?
I understand what it means in context, but why was this necessary? She is obviously referring to the captain or the person in charge. Why not just say that instead of making up a new word that he doesn't understand just so you can compare it to something he is familiar with? When you could have easily done that with any real word that describes a person in charge.
Where's the scientist?
Headed for the bridge. Can we fire up the emergency medical transporter?
Oh God, now we have an emergency medical transporter? Never before seen in any other Star Trek show. Siri, what's canon?
Energizing.
Man, these transporters are great. You don't even have to set coordinates. They read your mind.
Yes, I was there.
Gotcha! Thank you.
It's up to you now, Kyle.
I said step away.
What is going on? The blood sample magically beamed out of the hypo and went down to the transporter room to the doctor, and then they beamed the contents out of the vial into Spock's eye so the retinal scan would let him pass security. This is just hilarious. There was at least 2 ounces of fluid in that vial, and it beamed right into his eye at the split second before he scanned. Impossible. But sir, there's nothing impossible for the Transporter Supreme Model SUX. Perhaps I can interest you in a penis enlargement.
Spock, the shielding is jointed. We use a spoon. We may be able to route a transport signal through the gaps.
So they thought they could scrape a hole in the wall and somehow route a transporter signal through the gaps. As if the wall was going to be the only hindrance keeping the transporter signal out. And how do you route a signal through gaps in a wall like a snake? Have they not beamed through walls before? Did they think the walls were lined with some material that blocked the signal? How could they have come to this conclusion? They didn't even know they were underground. And a somewhat advanced race gets a hold of 3 aliens, and what do? Lock all 3 of them up in one tiny room for 6 days with just a small bench and a toilet. This is absolutely grade school storytelling. It's nonsense.
The pain, it is unbearable.
Spock?
That's better.
Frankly, that's the worst acting I've ever seen. And I watched the original series. This scene hurt my soul. Spock couldn't take the pain an 80-pound girl could.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I buy that. Uh-huh.
Anson Mount seems to be the only one pulling off any credible acting in this show.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Lady Khan takes down scientist alien guy with 2 fingers to the jugular. Lady Khan moves to give security guard number 1 an elbow to the face. Pike moves in on security guard number 2 while number 1 chokes out helpless scientist lady. In the background you can see Spock helping up first scientist guy that Lady Khan dropped with just 2 fingers. He's hypnotized him with his Vulcan stare. Lady Khan kicks the legs out from under first security guy and knocks him out. Meanwhile, number 1 is finishing off helpless scientist lady. Lady Khan swiftly moves to push scientist guy against the wall. That's what you get for just standing around. Pike gets a lucky hook and takes out security guy number 2. Security guy number 1 gets back up and Spock finally gets motivated to give him a Vulcan back pinch. And Lady Khan flips another guy twice their size to the ground and knocks him out.
That was totally wicked!
We lit up the sky.
There are various telescopes which just good enough to see us.
They collected enough data to reverse engineer a matter-antimatter reactor.
Throughout the Star Trek history, with all the advanced technology from a mountain of different species, when have they ever been able to use their sensors to scan other alien tech and reverse engineer it? If that were the case, Kirk wouldn't have ever had to steal a cloaking device. If future Starfleet couldn't do such a thing with their advanced scanners, how did these people do it with a telescope?
You've given me a proverb, which is less useful than a big stick. Whoever has the biggest stick wins. My job is to ensure our ability to govern future generations. If spilled blood is the price, so be it. Take them.
Emergency communication from Captain Pike. Enterprise to lower orbit, full visibility, show them what you got.
Yet another new feature no other show had. I can't count how many times Kirk could have used the ability to access his phone from across the room.
Captain.
Wait for it.
4 seconds. It takes the crew of the Enterprise 4 seconds to hear his command and then enact his command and then move the ship from a safe distance to the lower orbit. Magic!
Well, you read my file. You know that Gorn captured my family's colony ship and deposited us on one of their planetary nurseries.
Yet another retcon. Gorn were not a thing until the episode Arena in the original series. The Federation had no clue of their existence. They shoehorned this in to give yet another woman a tragic backstory that they had to overcome to make them the strong whammon they are today.
I've seen my future. Let me show you yours. Our conflict also started with a fight for freedoms. We called it the Second Civil War.
So they used the footage from January 6th protests to show what led to the Second Civil War, their new history, which has never been mentioned in any series.
Then the Eugenics War, and finally, just World War III. You'll use competing ideas of liberty to bomb each other to rubble just like we did, and then your last day will look just like this.
The Civil War, by their account, happened first, before the Eugenics Wars, which started in 1992 through 96. So they retconned their own history just so they could put in a new civil war that was started by people who have a competing idea of liberty. There's no such thing as a competing idea of liberty. Liberty is what it is. It's freedom, it's privacy, it's as little government as possible. Everything beyond that is a varying degree of tyranny. Men and women investing new and creative ways to clinch control over the individual, until the collective is more important than the person or individual. They are literally reverse engineering the Enterprise. Are they going to build one? How did they get the antimatter for their warp technology? Do you have any idea how scarce that would be for a less evolved planet like that? We can only make minuscule amounts of it in particle accelerators. This scenario is so far-fetched and almost impossible. So it seems Khan was spreading his space seed before he got sent off into the black. He seems to have left some offspring on Earth. He got exiled in 1996 and rediscovered in 2267. That's 273 years, enough for 10 generations. I wonder how much genetic enhancement got passed down from Khan to Lady Khan after 10 generations. I'm sure we'll find out before the series is over. Her heritage will get discovered and she'll either die or have to leave the ship, and Spock will be sworn to secrecy and won't be able to tell Kirk in the future when they find Botany Bay.
Oh, man.
Chris.
Captain.
Samuel Kirk.
George Samuel Kirk. A blatant attempt at member-berry insertion. This was just cheap, it's cringy, and we all know what you're doing. You know your show can't stand on its own. You have to have all these people and events that people know and are familiar with to get some sort of twisted, artificial, nostalgic reaction to pull them in. It doesn't work.
What's the mission?
We explore. We seek out new life and new civilizations. We boldly go where no one has gone before.
Cool.
That monologue does not belong to you. Just because the ship bears the name Enterprise doesn't mean you deserve to pilfer from better shows that came before you, just so you can fake some credibility. This monologue did not play in the pilot episode with Captain Pike. It was Kirk's monologue, and rightly passed down to the next generation. It's not for you. Create your own or shut up. You have no idea what kind of golden goose you have in your hands. Instead of feeding it and taking care of it so it'll produce shiny golden eggs for you, you're plucking its feathers and getting ready for Christmas dinner. Once it's gone, it's never coming back. Once we're gone, we're never coming back.